Well, hi, Amanda. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sherry. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So am I. And I feel like we're about to get into a really important conversation. And I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you because we're going to be talking about sleep. And
Mhm.
sleep is so important. And I always teach that sleep is actually part of our diet. And oftentimes we only focus on the food part, right? Or how much we move. But in general, not a lot of us actually focus on the quality of sleep. And especially nowadays where really even my kids, they each have an iPad and an iPhone and I everything, and I realized that even though I thought I was treating them and I was being generous, I actually realized that that's disrupting a lot of their hormonal functions, which I didn't have to get exposed to at their age. So welcome
Sure.
again, Amanda. And before we dive into all the amazing things that you do and start talking about sleep, maybe you can walk us through a little bit of how you got to this place and how you actually became that sleep expert.
Sure. So I became a nutritional therapy practitioner back in 2017, and that was really based on my own health journey. I was diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease when I was in my 40s, and for a while, I was going to the doctor and going through the usual standard of care, which worked for a while, but then it wasn't working anymore. And I knew that there had to be a root cause, a better approach. So I really dug into more holistic methods to try to overcome that. And it was a 2 year journey for me to really be able to get to the root cause and fix that. And that's probably a whole other podcast. But going through that, I began to blog about my experience. I had a blog called the Feeling Groovy Project,
Oh, sweet.
really based on a lot of the lifestyle and nutritional things that I was doing to help my condition. And people started asking me for help for different ailments. And I thought, well, you know what? I think this is really exciting to me. I'm going to go to school and get some credentials behind me before I'm going to be giving like any advice to anybody. So I went to the Nutritional Therapy Association and became a certified nutritional therapist, again, back in 2017. I really learned all of the basics, a holistic approach to nutrition and really connecting lifestyle and what we eat to hormones, blood sugar, digestion, all of the things, really getting the foundations down. And when I left that course, I really dug into, because of my own issues, more into gut health and autoimmunity, and learned all protocols in that. All this time, when I was going through some of my colitis issues, I was also having terrible sleep, but I wasn't paying much attention to it at all. And
Mm.
then I really found that the clients that came to me, even though they didn't come to me because of sleep, I was helping them with blood sugar and digestion and hormones and all the things, but all their sleep was terrible.
Mm.
So I found, okay, I really wanted to help them with that as well. So we would dabble in different type of whack-a-mole situations to try to help them with that. But it wasn't until the pandemic where my insomnia became out
Mm.
of control, chronic, where I was not sleeping at all. I was staring at the ceiling all night, walking around like a zombie all day. And I was back to that drawing board of like, I need to find the root cause of what's going on here, because all the little supplements and little tricks were just temporary fixes at that point. So I really dug into the research and decided that I was going to put together some type of a program out of this research to help my clients as well as myself.
Right.
So after all of that, experimenting on myself, doing all the research, I ended up writing a book,
Hmm.
creating a program and a framework around that, and pivoted my whole practice to sleep, because I think that, as you were saying in the beginning, we pay attention to our nutrition, we pay attention to our exercise, stress, but if your sleep is crap, all of those things are just not going to work out the way you want them to. And
Right.
sleep, I feel, is like really the foundation of all of that. And you can't really separate them because they all impact each other. But focusing first on the sleep, I think could be really helpful.
Uh, this is so good. And what I love about this conversation too, and just even addressing the sleep aspect of our diet, oftentimes we see nutrition as restriction or willpower, or there has to be a lot of big changes. And, maybe my spouse doesn't want to jump on the wagon, or, maybe my kids want to eat a certain way. And exercise also requires a lot of time, maybe commitment. Not that it requires a large amount of time at one moment. However, actually implementing that, scheduling that is effort, and so is the actual physical activity. But when we can adjust sleep, what's so interesting is that we end up balancing our hormones. We start to notice that there's a difference in our cravings. In fact, we actually release a lot of cravings for certain foods. We notice that we have more energy to exercise. We notice we're in a better mood. And so all of these amazing benefits come from just focusing on sleep. And it doesn't necessarily require the amount of physical effort that we would need to pour into exercise, and the type of discipline that we would need to maybe manage around nutrition. And so, Amanda, I'm curious as to how do we actually talk about good sleep? So you kind of brought up like, okay, their sleep was crap, right? So what is that? Like, how do I know that my sleep is quote unquote crap?
Well, I think there's a lot of different indicators for that. I think, there's, sleep onset insomnia where you just, you know, you might be exhausted, but as soon as you go up and your head hits the pillow, it's like your brain just goes on, and all of a sudden all of the stress and the thoughts and all of the things come in that keep you from falling asleep. So
Right.
they're, really looking at all of the things that might prevent you from having your melatonin kick in at the right time and being able to relax and get into that sleep. Then it's, are you waking up in the middle of the night? I mean,
Right.
it's pretty normal to have awakenings in the night. Sometimes you don't even know that it's happening.
Mhm.
But, the part where that becomes a problem is if you cannot get back to sleep.
Right.
So if you're waking in the night, not being able to go back to sleep, then you have a sleep issue.
Right.
If you do sleep all night and you wake up and you're still very tired and low energy and cognitively not feeling the best, maybe some brain fog going on or other issues, well, you might not be getting the quality sleep
Right.
that you need, where you're going through all of those important sleep stages where all the magic happens to prepare us to, kick butt the next day.
Right, right. Yeah, so during these cycles I know there's different processes that happen, and I'm definitely not an expert in some of these times, like the REM sleep, or REM as other people call it. And so I know that while we sleep, it's so important because first, like we were saying, we're balancing out hormones. There's certain processes that are winding down and other processes that are kicking up and preparing us for the next day. And it's also our opportunity to heal. And so, walk us through what, let's say, a good quality sleep looks like. And I think for a lot of people, there's oftentimes confusion around the number of hours to indicate the best quality of sleep versus the actual experience of waking up refreshed and energized and well rested. And so, could you walk us through what that looks like?
Sure. So they say 7 to 9 hours sleep is the average. I mean, there are some superhuman people that might be able to get less than that. They think it might catch up with them at some
Okay.
point.
Hmm.
But good, between 7, 8 hours, going over 9 hours, sometimes it's not thought to be the best thing. There might be some other conditions going on that are making that happen that you might want to look into. I have an aura ring and I track my sleep. So I have come to know my sleep stages, kind of what my baseline is for good sleep, and when I have bad sleep, and are able to kind of connect the dots, so to speak, as to what might be preventing that. But if you're not tracking your sleep in that way, in the beginning of the evening is typically when we go into our deeper sleep. And that's, as you were talking about, that's really where your body, it's, growth hormone kicks in, and it's, you're repairing muscles and growing muscle tissue. And a lot of the physical processes are really going into play to help cycle through and make sure that you are doing your best at that point. Once you get into kind of the second part of the evening, you're going into that REM sleep, and that's really your mind's spa time. So that's when we dream. That's when a lot of the toxins are being flushed out of our brains. We're consolidating our memories. So, there's both like the physical side and the cognitive side that really takes place in sleep. And if you're not going through all of the cycles and multiple cycles, you're going to feel the effects the next day. And if it becomes chronic, it could turn into chronic conditions at that point.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. So I am familiar with some of these cycles, and I had someone on the podcast. This must have been a couple months ago, and he was talking about the dangers of EMF and how that actually impacts your sleep. So we're trying to improve our sleep and the quality of our sleep, yet that is disrupted by all the electromagnetic frequency that we're receiving from our environment, including our gadgets that are measuring our sleep. And so, what would you say around that, Amanda? Because it's like such, and this is honestly today is sort of my beef around the whole health and fitness space. I was talking to somebody several weeks on the podcast, also talking about the dangers of gluten, and then I spoke to someone else this morning who's like, no, that's all BS. Like, gluten is like totally fine. And so there's all these mixed, and which by the way I don't agree with for many other reasons. However, all of these mixed informations and a lot of just point of confusion. Can you expand on that a little bit and really just bring us to maybe a little bit more clarity around what actually we can do to start to improve all of these different cycles?
Sure. So you really want to be able to get into your circadian rhythms, right? So this is our 24-hour body clock where all of our systems take place, and that includes sleep. And that's really based on light. So ideally, you're rising, in like back in the, hunter-gatherer days, or even like I always talk about like Little House on the Prairie when we got up, the rooster's crowing and the sun is rising. We're getting up and we're getting that nice sunshine in our eyes, which is really helping to set those circadian rhythms and get your body on track for the evening. So in the morning, you're rising your cortisol. That's when it should be its highest. And you're going about your day. And then as you get towards the evening, that's when your melatonin begins to kick in. And that's also ruled by the light. So you want more of darkness happening at that time to really be able to produce that melatonin. So things that you were talking about earlier, like electronics and EMFs and all the things could be, our bodies were not designed to take in all of these stimulants and all of this electromagnetic fields and this blue light and all of these things like that. I think when you're getting into EMFs and stuff, that's really like, people that are getting a little bit more advanced in trying to, fix these things. But I think a good rule of thumb is, some people, they shut down their Wi-Fi before they go to bed. They don't, they put their phone in airplane mode, so they're not getting the EMFs from that. And that's what I do. So like my ring is not really activating until I put my phone back on and the Bluetooth is kicking in to pick up the signal from that. But when it comes to just our devices and all of the artificial light that we're getting that could be disrupting our melatonin, it is said that you should try to ditch your screens and all those things, say like at least an hour before bed. But for some people, that's not realistic for them or a lifestyle that they're choosing. So that's when I say, well, for me, I put on blue blocking glasses every night at around 8:30. And that really helps to downregulate all of the blue light from whether it's looking at your phone or your computer or your television. And that will really help to, mitigate some of that light that comes in. But then you also have to think about what else is stimulating you from looking at your phone. So you might be getting upset by the news or, by that email you just got that you feel like you need to respond to, or, somebody made a comment on your Instagram post that you're not happy about. So there's all of that. And then there's also sleep procrastination,
Mm,
because you're like, you know, Netflix series are designed to make
right.
you want to keep watching episode after episode after episode, or your dopamine kicks in and you're scrolling on your phone and you just go, and then you're just putting off your sleep, right? So then you're losing, that really important early sleep where you get that deep sleep, as well as shortening your sleep time. So I think that might have been like a longer explanation than
Oh,
you want.
so good. As you were talking, Amanda, I was like, check, 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 check. I was thinking about all the things that I've done to really help support my sleep. And similar to you, I used to have such a hard time falling asleep, or if I did wake up in the middle of the night, it would take me forever to try to fall back asleep. And so one thing I've done, well, not one thing, several things I've done, but one thing around coffee, let's say, is to have a hard stop by 11 a.m. It used to be 12 p.m. Now it's 11 a.m. So I have maybe 2 cups in the morning. I'm done by 11. If I didn't drink my second cup, too bad, because I know that it affects my sleep. And when I drink caffeine later, let's say in the afternoon, it's not going to happen no matter how exhausted I am. Another thing I've done is in the evening now I watch documentaries. So that way they will put me to sleep, compared to, let's say, a show where there's violence and there's like all this
Yeah.
drama and thrill going on. And I also just step away a little bit from social media. So I've uninstalled all the apps from off my phone. If I need to access social media, I got to be on my computer. And obviously I do use them for work. So these are all the little things that I've started to really focus on. And even just water consumption. So try to drink all my water throughout the day, so that way I'm not up at night several times needing to use the washroom.
Mm-hmm,
But what
mm-hmm.
other suggestions? Because when we're talking about the importance of sleep and really matching the circadian rhythm, and what I'm hearing you say is that it doesn't actually happen 1 or 2 hours before bed. And that's oftentimes when we start to actually prepare our bodies for sleep. But what I hear you say, Amanda, is actually starts from the moment that we wake up. Because now I have to go
Mm-hmm.
outside, and now I have to match also the daylight, and I need to make sure that my eyes are exposed to that light. And now all these other processes that have other hormones, let's say, maximizing or peaking at certain times, must happen, so that by the end of the day, when insulin resistance, let's say, rises, and then now it's time to sleep, that I'm now really well prepared and balanced for sleep. So again, maybe just share and expand a little bit around what that can look like in terms of how can we start to maybe make other changes or adjustments throughout the day that can impact our quality of sleep, and eventually also that we gain those benefits that we get from quality of
Sure.
sleep.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Your sleep starts the minute you wake up in the morning, and
Mm.
everything you do throughout the day and the timing of when you do those things can impact your sleep. We talked about cortisol being in the morning. So anything that's going to raise your cortisol, like stress or anything like that, is going to be a problem for you. So really making sure that you're managing your stress throughout the day and finding techniques to deal with that. And that's a whole other subject within itself.
Yes.
But yeah, caffeine has a half-life, of up, 8 to 10 hours, and people metabolize it differently. So I have friends that could, be drinking espressos with dinner and have no problem. But, like you, for me, I have my cutoff at like 10 in the morning, which wasn't always the case. It's been like, as I've gotten older, it's been less and less. Another thing caffeine does, is we have a chemical in our body so we have our circadian rhythms that help us with our sleep cycles, but then we also have adenosine, which is a chemical that builds up in our body, which is sleep pressure. So it makes you get sleepier and sleepier throughout the day, and caffeine blocks those receptors.
Mm.
So you will not be as sleepy from the caffeine. And the caffeine's not only in coffee, right? I mean, it's in chocolate, it's in a lot of supplements, it's in energy drinks. I mean, just like thinking through like all of the things, medications throughout the day that you might be taking that have that. Supplements and medications as well can disrupt your sleep.
Mm.
And there is a list of really common medications that people are on, from blood pressure to cholesterol medication, anything for ADHD, even like some SSRIs.
Mm.
It's not something your doctor usually says to you, but they all have been shown to have insomnia as a side effect.
Wow.
So really thinking through, when are you taking your medications? Definitely talk to your doctor about any switches you're going to make in that sense. But even supplements like B vitamins before bed would be a no-no, because that's,
Mm.
they help you get energy. Multivitamins have
Mm.
things in there that you're not really sure about.
Wow.
Even vitamin D is known to cause insomnia. But if you're deficient in vitamin D, that could be a problem. So taking that earlier in the day. Meal timing,
Yes.
trying to finish your meal, 2 to 3 hours before bed to give your body time to digest, because when you're digesting, um, it's raising your body temperature, and you want your body temperature to lower before you go to bed to get a good night's sleep.
Mm.
So, and you really don't want to go to bed on a full stomach and have all the digestive issues that go along with that. So looking at your meal timing is important. Alcohol. A lot of people like to think, well,
Yes.
have a nice glass of wine to relax before bed. But that has a rebound effect. It's a sedative. It'll help you fall asleep. But then once it processes through your liver, or like 3 o'clock, you're going to just go bing and
Right.
be woken up out of a sound sleep. So, yeah, that's like when I'm working with clients, we're really looking at that. We're like, okay, the foundations of sleep, making sure that you have good sleep hygiene, you're creating, a really great sleep environment, you have some type of a wind down routine, a regular sleep schedule, but really trying to connect the dots to all of the things that you do during the day. Even exercise.
Mm.
Exercise is great for sleep,
Yes.
but if you do, you know, exercise too close to bed, especially like high intense exercise, you're going to raise your cortisol, you're going to raise your body temperature, and that could cause a problem. So it's really an N=1 experiment for everybody.
Mhm.
And you really have to know what works for you when it comes to those things.
Yeah, so good, so good. And a lot of things that you were sharing that I've actually implemented have been major game changers. And one of the greatest things that I've noticed is the eating too close to bedtime. And so, I'd have some really busy days where I'd just push my meals, and then I'd find myself eating a bigger meal right before
Mm-hmm.
bed, closer to bed, and I couldn't sleep well. Like, I'm up, first of all, I can feel myself still digesting, and then the next morning I feel groggy, I feel a little bit of brain fog. I'm bloated because I'm not fully digesting, right, all the food that I'm eating right before bed. And so I like what you say about this needing to be an experiment, because when it comes to our health in general, globally, there is no one size fits all. And we have to experiment with all these things because, yeah, for many people, caffeine affects them in one way. And for others, maybe they have no problems having that espresso right before bed. And for others as well, noticing again, just how do we manage stress? And some of us can handle a lot of stress and it doesn't impact our sleeps. And while for others, perhaps that thought of something that's so worrying is enough to keep them up all night. And so it does have to be an experiment with all of these things, and it's really, really important. And what I have to say about that, and kind of similar to what you shared earlier in your story, where you started to notice that a lot of the women that came to see you for one thing, what they wanted to see you for was actually not what they needed to see you for. And that's super, super curious, and I find very interesting as a coach. Oftentimes what I offer someone that I'm working with is not what they actually want, it's what they actually
Mm-hmm.
need. And so if you're
Yeah.
noticing that there's all these health issues that you're struggling with, if you notice that you've been trying your best to release weight, you've changed your nutrition, you're exercising, and things are just not budging, I'm just going to open up the idea of just maybe exploring something else. And sleep is so important. We spend 8 hours of our day. That's like at least 25% of our time, right? Or even 30% of our time sleeping, depending on how much sleep you're getting. And so it's that vital that if you can focus on improving that quality throughout the day and every single day, you're going to notice a massive impact in your overall health. And so I'll just add, don't try to look for another magic bullet. Work with the basics, and the basics is the water consumption. The basics is the good quality of sleep. The basic is, how do I manage my stress? Because if I'm up all night thinking about all these things, can I focus on that? And then stop trying to use exercise and diet as the only two means to help us transform our bodies. And so,
Yeah.
along those lines, Amanda, I'm curious what you can suggest for somebody listening who is struggling with insomnia, or maybe noticing that they are getting maybe 8 hours of sleep, but still always waking up exhausted. What can they do to start to create awareness around moving towards improving that quality of sleep?
Yeah, I think, it's first, as we were speaking earlier, how do you know you have a sleep issue?
Right.
So if you're experiencing any of the things we talked about, trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, not feeling well rested, it's time to really look at your sleep. And when I work with clients, and in my book as well, I have a commitment statement
Mhm.
that you know what, you might have to change some
Right.
habits. It might like rattle some relationships when you can't, you're not going to be going out drinking late with your
Right.
friends after work, or your husband wants to, watch TV all night and you're like, no, or, you know,
Other things that he wants to do at night.
yeah, all the things, right? There's a lot of, you might, the meal timing, like all the habits, right? So you have to like commit to say, okay, I'm going to like really focus on my sleep and commit to playing sleep detective, connecting those dots and trying to make some adjustments. But really, first starting with those foundations, getting on a regular sleep schedule, even on the weekends, commit to it for 30 days. Start by setting the alarm in the morning for when you need to get up, giving yourself enough time that you're not rushing around and starting off, as stressed out, in a big tizzy, as soon as you walk out the door in the morning. And then your bedtime, trying to get that on a regular schedule as well. I think once you start waking up at a regular time is what you're really trying to train your body
Mm.
to expect sleep at a certain time. So this is going to include, having that wind down routine,
Right.
getting yourself in a relaxed state, not having cortisol rushing through your body, because that is
Mm.
the antithesis to melatonin.
Right.
It's like the yin and
Mm.
yang. You just have to manage that cortisol.
Wow.
So again, training your body, get into a good sleep routine at night, whatever that might look like. A warm bath, journaling, reading a book, not on your phone
Right.
or with blue blocking glasses if you are. Um, so getting into some type of routine, making sure that your sleep environment is optimized. So the temperature of your room matters.
Right.
65 to 68 degrees. You want it to be cool. You want it to be dark. You don't want it to be cluttered. Sleep. Your bedroom is for sleep and intimacy with your partner alone. So not working from your bed, not eating from your bed. You want to make that association with sleep. Then it's,
Mm.
as we were talking earlier, tracking all the things that you do during the day, the timing of them,
Mhm.
and compare it to your sleep quality,
Mm.
which you should be tracking as well. So what time did I go to bed? What time did I wake up? Did I wake in the middle of the night? How long did it take to fall back to sleep? What was going on with me? Oh, wait, what did I do yesterday that might have impacted that? Oh yeah, I had that coffee, meeting at 2 o'clock and decided to have a latte. That might have been it. So making all of those adjustments.
Mhm.
Um, so those would be the main things, waking in the middle of the night, again, that's usually, there's a number of reasons that could happen, and we could get into some of those if you'd like, but typically that's when your mind turns on
Right.
and you can't turn it off, and it's, this incessant mind chatter, or you start ruminating or catastrophizing or whatever the case may be. So, I work with clients on tools to help manage that as well.
Mhm.
If after 30 days you're doing these things
Mhm.
and you're still really suffering, that's when you look into, is it something deeper? Do I have a
Mhm.
sleep disorder? Is it sleep,
Mm.
sleep apnea,
Right.
restless leg syndrome? Do I have blood sugar dysregulation? Are there digestive issues going on? There's other things that could be contributing that you might need a little bit more help managing.
Right. Yeah, so good. And I love this, and it can sound so overwhelming because you just shared so many things that really could take days and days and days to really master. But I think what would be very mindful and relaxing for anyone listening is just to start with one thing at a time. And I'll always say that because I don't know what worked and what didn't. If I tried four different things, I don't know if that worked or if that worked, right? So maybe try one thing at a time, If
Yeah,
it did not work
absolutely.
for you, then move on to the next thing that Amanda shared. Then if that didn't work for you, move on to the next thing. And then start to notice how your quality of sleep is maybe improving, changing, and then keeping that journal. I love this idea of just taking note of what's going on. And so, Amanda, you're talking a lot about the circadian rhythm, and I can't help but wonder for someone who's listening right now who's like, what? But I have a night shift. Like, my job is a night
Mm,
shift. Like, what do I do? Like, quit my job? Like, so what would you
mm.
suggest around that?
Yeah. Well, you know, we need people doing the night shift, right? We need the doctors and the nurses and the law enforcement. And my dad was a cop and he worked, the night shift. And I I think it's, if you have any control of still having a regular schedule, that's going to
Mhm.
be really helpful.
Right.
And some of the same things still apply.
Mhm.
So you need to be able to carve out that time when you're going to get your sleep. It might be opposite from the rest of the world. Get a sleep mask. Make
Mhm.
your environment as dark as possible. Use some of the same techniques that you would use if you were not working a night shift, and really, really try that. I mean, sometimes there's shift work where you're not on the same schedule, or you just had a baby, and that's just a season of life that you
Right.
go through,
Yes.
that you try to get some assistance for that nap, when you can, but still trying to train, for those people that do work the night shift, still trying to get onto some type of a rhythm with a schedule where our bodies like repetition.
Hmm.
So eating your meals the same time every day,
Right.
sleeping the same time every day, exercising the same time every day, and then you'll set your own circadian rhythm that
Mm.
works for whatever your situation is.
Oh, so good. Oh my God, so much value. That was amazing. And I think anyone listening is like, oh, good. Okay, so good. And it's so true. The body loves to adapt. It's a master adapter. And if it can predict when things are going to happen, then it can start to also adjust all the other processes that it takes care of for us
Mm-hmm.
during those times to maximize our health benefits. So this has been so, so valuable, Amanda. And is there anything else that you wanted to share with us that you didn't have a chance to just yet?
I think I shared a lot,
You sure
probably
did.
more than you wanted. Um, no, I think, I really, to your comment about, taking one thing at a time, I totally agree with that.
Mhm.
I was giving all the things, but definitely, you know, getting that sleep schedule down. Once you feel like you have that down, starting to incorporate all of those things. And the book that I wrote actually is designed that way,
Mhm.
where it's a 5-week program and it's day by day, and you get a little, snippet of information, and then you have some type of an action item that you're working on, and it's
So good.
self-paced to
Wow.
get you through all of these, all of the different things that you would want to try. For some people, it's like, oh wait, as you mentioned earlier, I changed my meal time. I'm done eating by 7 o'clock and I'm sleeping like a baby. It
Right.
could be that one thing,
Yeah.
but you don't know until you really, try one thing at a time. This way you do know
Right.
which thing it is that's helping. And that's what I would say there.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And that sounds like an amazing book. I'm definitely going to check it out. And we're going to add all of this information in the show notes too. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you, Amanda, to learn more, to work with you, where could they go to do that?
Sure. You could go to my website, which is amandachocko.com, and it's CHOCKO. On there, you could find my book. I have a free download
Mm,
for creating your perfect wind down routine guide that you could access. Information on my coaching program. There's some articles on there. I also have Instagram, Amanda@amanda.chocko, where I give sleep tips as well.
amazing. Thank you so much, Amanda. There was so much value today, and I so appreciate your time with me.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.